Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. There's even a brand new Brigadier General tier where you can get a shout out on a Commander's Quarters episode that's dedicated to you. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So welcome to the final day of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoiler season, and what a spoiler season it has been. Now one thing really quick, I should mention that I believe the pre-con spoilers, outside the pre-con commanders, should be coming out on Monday, I believe. But check me in the comments below if I'm incorrect on that. Thank you. Regardless, if you haven't seen my episode on Aruth Tormented Prophet, make sure you check it out because this very well might be my brand new favorite commander from this set. And yeah, she is pretty fantastic, so make sure you check that episode out. And speaking of fantastic, make sure you check out my episode on Sinner's Judgment, a brand new fun way to make your opponents lose the game. On top of that, also check out my most recent episode on Wash Away, which is a card that I definitely dismissed at first. And then there was just one thing that makes it actually a really good card. So make sure you check that episode out to find out what that is. But don't leave just yet. Make sure you stick around, obviously, for this episode first. And my apologies for this in advance. Zoinks Scoobs! Rare Roinks! and I can't do a Velma, but Velma would be saying Jinkies here. Scooby-Doo references aside, we've got ourselves a brand new detective in Magic with Jacob Hauken. So what exactly does Jacob Hauken do? What kind of mysteries is he gonna solve? And will Scooby-Doo ever get that Scooby snack? Well, let's jump into it to find out. At least one of those things. First off, a big thank you to MTG Goldfish for the translated version of this card. Jacob Hauken Detective is a 0-2 human advisor for 1 in a blue. And I don't know why I actually talk like that. I just feel like Jacob Hauken, for whatever reason, talks like that. I'll stop, I promise. Maybe. Okay. Anyways, Jacob has tap, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Then you may pay 4 blue. If you do, transform Jacob Hauken Detective. So let's analyze the front side of this card first before jumping to the back. This is a very low to the ground commander that helps you a lot just with card selection on the front side. I mean, being able to tap to draw a card, although you are losing a card from your hand and exiling it face down, obviously still being able to provide you that kind of card selection really early on in the game and potentially multiple times in a turn, and we'll talk about those ways here in a bit, can be fantastic. Now, obviously, since it says you may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled, we're probably going to be able to interact with those cards. We'll see on the back, though. But really quick, it also says, then you may pay 4 blue if you do transform Jacob Hauken Detective. This most definitely reminds me of that Jaren Ormondal from the last set, where, you basically had an effect or had a certain requirement you had to meet, then you could pay a certain amount to flip it. So although this commander, again, is very cheap, being just 2 mana, obviously it's going to cost a decent amount of mana to flip it, though it very well might be worth flipping, because on the backside, we've got Hauken's Sight, a legendary enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at it for as long as it remains exiled. And of course, during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell without paying its mana cost from among the cards exiled with this permanent. So a couple of things here. First up, Hauken's Sight is going to be giving you access to all those exiled cards, which, yeah, is pretty fantastic. So it kind of turns that what was card selection at the time into, well, kind of card advantage. Now again, this is not the official translated version of it, and I've also seen some places where it says once during each of your turns. So yeah, I believe that there is kind of that limitation where basically during each of your turns you can either play a land or cast 1 spell for free without paying its mana cost. My apologies if I've been correct on this, but yeah, I believe there would be that limitation. Regardless, being able to cast something for free on each of your turns can be incredibly impactful, and obviously we'll talk about some cards that, well, you might really want to cast for free. So it starts off as a low-to-the-ground commander that can give you some fantastic card selection, eventually flips over into a very powerful enchantment that still gives you kind of extra cards in this pool of exiled cards, except, just one at a time, but then it allows you to cast things for free in that. So yeah, that can be quite the mythic effect. Regardless, let's first talk about some similar cards from the past and then talk about cards that would work really well with this commander. And the first card that came to my mind was Merfolk Looter, which is the original Looter, at least to my knowledge. That's what looting is named after. Because Merfolk Looter is also a creature that costs 1 and a blue, and it has tap, draw a card, then discard a card. So again, this is a somewhat different kind of card selection. Again, you draw a card just like our new commander does, but you're going to be discarding a card, so you usually have more easy access to those cards in your graveyard, and there's certain, decks that actually want cards in their graveyard, etc, etc, etc. That being said, obviously, Merfolk Looter itself doesn't give you access to those cards, whereas Jacob Hauken does if you, flip the card. And of course, there's actually a commander that is somewhat similar to this new one with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, / Jace Telepath Unbound. Jace is also a 0/2 that costs 1 and a blue, and it has tap, draw a card, then discard a card. So again, basically a Merfolk Looter as a commander. But this one also has, if there are 5 or more cards in your graveyard, exile Jace Vryn's Prodigy, then return him to the battlefield transformed under his owner's control. So, notably, this one actually doesn't give you the option to say, nah, I'd rather just keep the Merfolk Looter side up, you have to flip. And of course, on the backside, instead of, getting an enchantment like Hawken's Sight, you're getting Jace Telepath Unbound, a Planeswalker. And actually, this Planeswalker is -3. You may cast target insert sorcery card from your graveyard this turn. If that card be put in your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So this one doesn't help you cheat on mana, but it can give you access to certain cards from your graveyard. So yeah, there's some decent differences between these two commanders, most notably that one, gives you the option to transform, though you have to pay for that. And, when you do transform, you get to start casting things for free that you got rid of. So, obviously, these two are similar, but actually, again, because you're going to be able to cast things for free, I believe Jacob Hawken is going to be slightly more popular than this Jace. Though, I could be wrong. Regardless, now that we've talked about some similar cards, let's talk about some cards that can help out Jacob. Hawken. Jacob Hawken. Detective. Solving crimes. Jinkies. Okay, I'm going to stop. First up, obviously, blue has plenty of untap effects, like, Dramatic Reversal, which is going to untap all non-land permanents you control, so yeah, a card like this could definitely come in handy with Jacob Hawken. You cast this, you untap your commander so you can tap again to draw another card, exile another card, and you know what, while you're doing that, you also untap all your mana rocks, so, you basically either pay for, this card essentially by untapping basically 2 mana rocks, or you even net mana depending on how many mana rocks and how much they tap for. Yeah, this is a fantastic card, and obviously I could bring up Izzet Scepter, but I'm not going to, although I just mentioned it. Anyways, repeatable untap effects can obviously really help out this commander as well, things like Retreat to Coral Helm, Freed from the Real, and Shock 'em Retriever. Retreat to Coral Helm has whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1, you may tap or untap target creature, or scry 1. Obviously, the mode that I'm talking about is the first one. And yeah, being able to untap our commander gives us extra, again, card selection, which eventually leads to card advantage. And then Freed from the Real has Enchant Creature, pay a blue, tap Enchanted Creature, or pay a blue, untap Enchanted Creature, and obviously the second one is what we want with this commander. So yeah, just for a blue, we can essentially just keep drawing cards and exiling cards from our hand, and yeah, really filling up that pool of exiled cards while also, selecting the exact cards that we want for our hand. And then also, one of the bestest boys around, Shock 'em Retriever, can help us out too. It says, whenever you cast a spell during your turn, untap target creature. This is basically just a fantastic free untap effect whenever we just happen to cast spells during our turn. And speaking of fantastic untap effect, how about 1000-Year Elixir, which, thank goodness this card was reprinted recently, but I'd like it reprinted again, please get it anywhere near budget territory because it's a great card. Anyways, it's an artifact for 3 that says you may activate abilities of creatures you control as though those creatures had haste and pay 1 and tap to untap target creature. This allows our commander to tap right away, which again is pretty fantastic, and also just paying 1 mana we can tap to untap it to do it again. Moving on, Illusionist Bracers is of course also a fantastic card, and I think this card's around $10 or so right now, so again, please reprint this card. It says whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it isn't a mana ability, copy that ability. You may choose some targets for the copy. Essentially, this is just going to give us double the value every single time we tap our commander, and again, if we've got a lot of untap effects, that basically doubles all of them up too. Or should I say, doubles up the value that we're getting from those. And speaking of doubling, we can also double up the amount of cards that we're drawing with things like Thought Reflection and Teferi's Ageless Insight. Thought Reflection says if you would draw a card, draw 2 cards instead. And Teferi's Aegis Insight is somewhat similar. It says if you would draw a card, except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So this essentially turns our commanders, again, card selection to eventual card advantage into just straight up card advantage. Because with either of these in play, we're going to be drawing 2 cards and only exiling 1. So yeah, we'd essentially net 1 card. Regardless, one thing to keep in mind is that there is kind of a push and pull with this commander where if you have all of these effects that kind of benefit you by, allowing you to untap your commander or, let you draw additional cards, you're going to be gaining a lot of value from those. But the second that you flip your commander, well, those effects obviously do still help out in other ways. If you've got card draw spells, Thought Reflection can help you with that. But those untap effects, unless you've got other things to untap, aren't really going to be all that useful. Though, obviously, once you do flip your commander, you're kind of in the end game state where you're just casting things for free. And you're going to have other ways to finish your opponents off. But again, just want to mention that one thing to keep in mind with this commander. But of course, another thing to keep in mind are cards that can also benefit you even further when you are drawing cards with cards like Psychic Corrosion, Ominous Seas, and Psychosis Crawler. If you really want to go with a mill strategy, obviously Psychic Corrosion can really help you out. It says whenever you draw a card, each opponent mills 2. So that can get out of control pretty quickly, again, especially when you've got a commander that can tap to draw and you've got plenty of ways to untap it and draw extra cards, etc, etc, etc. And then Ominous Seas says whenever you draw a card, put a 4-channel counter on Ominous Seas, remove 8 counters on it, and then you can create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. So yeah, draw a ton of cards, make a bunch of Krakens, and have fun. And then, of course, Psychosis Crawler says whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. So, yeah, drain out your opponents really quickly with this. Regardless, though, again, with that push and pull, you are kind of utilizing these to gain advantages from when your commander is actually out. I mean, the front side of your commander is actually out. When you flip it, again, you might not have those same advantages, so please keep that in mind. But when you do flip your commander, obviously, you can cast massive spells for free, so what are we going to be casting? Well, one of my personal favorites that used to be budget and is no longer, well, it's like $4 or $5 at this point, is Tidespout Tyrant. And yeah, this thing is well worth the 8 mana, although again, with this kind of a deck, you can cast it for free. It's a 5/5 flying Djinn that says whenever you cast a spell, return target permanent to its owner's hand. So again, if you've got a good amount of cheap spells in this deck, like maybe some of those untap effects, well, you can really take advantage of that, cast a lot of spells, and bounce a lot of your opponent's things back to their hands. Or, you could play Omniscience, which lets you cast even more things for free. If you've got $15 lying around for Omniscience, or whatever it costs today. Though, do keep in mind that this won't let you cast spells from those exiled cards for free, only spells from your hand, but still, that's an incredibly powerful effect. And of course, there are plenty of other massive spells out there that you're going to want to cast for free with your commander, or should I say the backside of your commander. But yeah, these are 2 great options. And do keep in mind with this kind of a commander that actually having massive spells in the deck really doesn't hamper it all that much, because in a lot of decks, they just be dead cards in your hand. But again, this commander helps with card selection, helping you draw a card and then essentially, exiling another card. So you can just exile those massive spells that you're not going to be able to cast from your hand, usually. Obviously, again, there's, like I mentioned before, there is a push and pull with all this. And of course, that doesn't work all that well with Omniscience if you do get massive spells in your hand. But still, just make sure that you're considering that, yes, although you might have dead cards in your hand at a certain point, your commander can help you, well, get rid of them, and then eventually cast them for free. Regardless, another card that unfortunately has gotten pretty expensive lately because of certain commanders that can really use it, Paradox Haze. It's going to be a great card with this commander as well. It says, at the beginning of enchanted player's first upkeep each turn, that player gets an additional upkeep step after this step. So, yeah, I mean, if you've got the backside of the commander out, then you can exile a second card in a turn. So again, if you're really playing to actually get to that point where you've got that backside of the commander out, this can help you with extra, well, kind of card advantage, let's say. Regardless, now that we've talked about cards that work very well with Jacob Hauken, let's talk about some commanders that might want Jacob in the 99 of their decks. And the first one that I want to bring up is actually a commander that you may have seen me play in the second episode of Close Quarters with Garth One Eye. So yeah, if you haven't seen that episode, make sure you check it out at some point. Not right now, because it'd be rude for you to just leave this episode. So stick around for just a bit longer, okay? Anyways, my Garth deck is all about tapping and untapping things, and yeah, Garth can tap for quite a few things. But yeah, there's also plenty of spells in this deck that essentially can untap your entire army, so having another kind of Merfolk Looter type of card in there can be very impactful, especially one that can flip for a lot of extra value. And another commander that might want to consider this is Min, Wily Illusionist, that says whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with. This creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion you control. And whenever an illusion you control dies, you may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from your hand onto the battlefield. So having those Merfolk Looter type of cards can definitely help out with a commander like this. Regardless, yeah, I really like the design of this commander. It's got that push and pull. Again, it can really help you out early on in the game, giving you that card selection with, eventual card advantage, with a big payoff again with that Hauken sight, letting you kind of utilize those cards that you exiled and then cast massive things for free. So yeah, this is definitely one of those commanders that I'll be interested to see how many players actually end up playing with. To my knowledge, that Jace commander that is similar isn't really all that popular of a commander, and actually many players just play Jace Tribal with it. But yeah, this is obviously not going to be a Jace Tribal commander, unless you really want it to be. But yeah, I think that this one definitely has a bit more interest to it, and players like casting massive spells for free, so we shall see if, that payoff on Hawken's Sight is enough for players to want to play with this commander. And just one more thing. Zoink Scoobs! Rare! Okay, I'm done. And with that, the show has come to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thank you again, and have a good one.